So today, what we've been doing and what we'll be doing for the next few weeks is talking about parables. And last week, we talked a little bit about what a parable is. And we went over the first parable in the series that we were dealing with, which was the sower, the parable of the sower. And I think that, Maren, are you with us? Can you open your microphone so we can hear you? Maren, are you there? Oh, here comes Lucy. Maren,
Hi.
hi. And Lucy, are you coming on? Well, we're coming on. Maren, are you there? I don't know where you at. There's.
Hi.
Okay, there you are. People moving around my screen. So do you remember last time when we met, we were talking about a parable and what a parable is? Do you remember what a parable is?
It's a story that teaches a lesson.
That's right. It's a story that teaches a lesson. And one of the things that Jesus did in his preaching was he would use parables to teach a lesson. And I think it's an interesting way to sort of tell a story and get people to think about it a little bit and probably have a little discussion. And so that's what we're going to try to do here today. So I am going to share my screen again, and then what we will do is I got to figure out how to do this. Let's see. I think I can just do page down. So today we're going to be talking about the parable of the vineyard workers. And this was the prettiest picture of a vineyard that I could find. It looks pretty good. This one's in California somewhere. And if you've ever been to a vineyard, they look kind of like this. And they got grapes growing all over the place. And it's really looks like a serene place to work, but I'm sure it's a lot of work. So what I like to do is go over with you as to what the parable of the vineyard worker is. And so this is the story that Jesus told because he was trying to explain what the kingdom of heaven is like. And he said this: "For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard." So he needed workers to work in his field. "After agreeing with the laborers for a denarius a day," a denarius is like $1, "he sent them into his vineyard. And going out about the third hour, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. And to them he said, 'You go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right, I will give you.' So they went. And going out again about the 6th hour and the 9th hour, he did the same." So what he did was the owner of the farm basically went out and found people, and some people started very early in the morning. Other people started 3 hours later. Some more people started 6 hours later, and other people started 9 hours later. So that's where we are in the story. And somehow this is like the kingdom of heaven. So we're going to find out, how is that like the kingdom of heaven? Tara, do you want to take this one? You have to unmute.
That would help.
Yeah.
Okay. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing. And he said to them, "Why do you stand here idle a day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You go into the vineyard too." And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call the laborers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last up to the first." And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius.
So even though they came at the 11th hour, they still got the same pay. So what happened next was And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, saying, these last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day in the scorching heat. But he replied to one of them, friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or do you begrudge my generosity? So the last will be first, and the first will be last. So that is the parable that Jesus told. And the question is, initially, my question is, was the master of the house being fair or unfair to the workers? Because what happened here was some worked 12 hours the whole day and got the same amount of money as people who worked less. And some of them worked a lot less. And they all got paid the same. So the question is, how is that like the kingdom of God? And that's the ultimate question. But I'd like to start with this question is, how is that fair or unfair to the workers? Maren, what do you think? Was he being fair to all the workers?
I think it could be different by how you look at it, but I
Okay.
think it's mostly unfair because if you work for all day and then one person works for 1 hour and you get the same pay, then it may not seem fair, but I think it depends on how you look at it.
Okay. Claire, what do you think?
I think it is unfair.
You think it's unfair? How would you feel if you were, would you feel it was unfair if you were the person who worked only 1 hour?
Well,
How would you feel if you were that person?
I'd be happy I got the money, but I'd also kind of feel sorry for the other people.
Okay. James, what do you think?
I don't think it's fair. I think people should be paid depending on how hard they worked or how good the work they did. So I don't think that's fair. I think you can't just work for a shorter amount of time and get paid the same amount as people who worked a lot harder than you.
Yeah, I know that's generally how it works, isn't it? So let me throw this out to you, this idea. So suppose I promise to pay you, whoops, I didn't want to do that. What am I trying to do here? I'm trying to move this. Suppose I promise to pay you $100 for 8 hours of work, okay? And I paid you exactly what I promised you. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds fair to me, right? Because you got exactly what you were promised. So didn't the first workers get exactly what they were promised also? They said they would work at the beginning of the day. They said, if you come work for me all day, I'll give you a denarius. I'm not sure what a denarius is worth, but it's a day's wage. It's probably the equivalent of $15 an hour now. But if you get what is promised to you, I think by some definition, that might be what's fair. So here's another question. Then suppose I paid the other worker $100 for only 2 hours of work. Right, you would say that's not fair.
No.
But isn't it kind of funny how what seemed fair at the beginning, and it was fair because that's what you were promised, suddenly becomes unfair? That's kind of weird, isn't it? What do you think of that? Hey, Lucy, how are you?
Good.
I don't know if you've been able to follow along with us or if you've been in and out. So I didn't get an idea from you. Did you see the scenario that we have here? Where
Yeah.
do you think this is fair to the workers?
No.
No? Even what if you get paid exactly what you were promised? Isn't that fair?
Yes.
Yeah. It's
But
kind of
like,
this is,
they
go ahead.
only
if they only work for 2 hours
Yeah.
and other people got paid 100, but they also got paid 100, then you wouldn't be keeping your promise, and then so that wouldn't be fair to the other workers.
Well,
They
see, and
might
that's, I think you said something there that's very insightful. This is sort of about keeping your promises, isn't it? Because the worker, the vineyard owner definitely kept his promise. He never promised the workers that he would pay them all the same. He just promised that he would pay them a denarius for a day's work. This is why I think it's such an interesting parable, and it really gets people to think about, you know, promises and being fair and so forth. And so I think we already sort of touched on this question. The workers who did less work, I think they would feel pretty good. You know, they would feel like they got something. Lucy, if you were the worker who only worked 2 hours, how would you feel? I'm sorry. Yeah, Lucy, how would you feel?
I would think that it's probably like I'm glad that I didn't have to work as much, but I still got the same amount. But I kind of think like I should probably get paid less instead because I didn't work for 8 hours.
Right. Tara, what do you think about this? You think we got a fairness problem here?
Yep. I think we have a fairness problem.
You do? Now, when the vineyard owner was confronted by the workers who did more work, do you remember what his response was? Marin, do you remember what he said?
Not totally, but I remember some of them. It was like, we worked more than they do, but you give them the same amount as us, and they got responded as, I gave you as I promised.
Right, I gave you as I promised. And why are you upset if I'm being generous to somebody else? Does that something, I see this all the time. I know most of you have brothers and sisters. And you all get jealous if your brother or sister gets more than you do, for example, like got more candy or more treats.
Yes.
Yeah, do you feel that way, Lanier? You feel that way sometimes?
I have 3 boys, and I know they always feel like one of them is getting more than them.
Yeah. My guys don't like to let the other one watch more TV. So if somebody gets up a little bit earlier, they have a deal where you cannot start watching TV until the other one gets up. You know, so then you end up with one sleepy kid and one bored kid. So you guys all feel that way? But I think in this case, what Jesus is trying to tell us, and this is the hard thing, this is a hard lesson, I think, is I think he was saying that God can be generous with people, and sometimes, you know, you get, we all look for God's generosity, and he rewards everyone who comes to him. So the vineyard owner is kind of like plays the role of God in this case, and God makes a promise to us, which is, if you follow me, if you believe in God and you live as Jesus has taught us, then you have earned your reward and you will get your reward. But there are other people who, you know, you guys are fortunate, I think, because you're learning these lessons relatively early in life. Some people don't learn them until much later in life. Are they less deserving of a reward because they learned about Jesus later and maybe changed their lives to become better people later in life than you did because you learned it earlier in life? Does anybody feel that way? James, what do you think? That's a tough one for you, huh? I can't hear you. Well, you dropped out on me. Are you there?
We can't hear you.
Can't hear me. All right, maybe that's me. I'm going to switch over my internet. Maybe that's my problem. Hold on one
We
second.
can hear you, Mr. Devine.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
but
can?
we can't
Okay.
hear James.
Yeah, we just couldn't hear James.
Yeah, I lost James for a second there. Well, who else has
He's
a
on-
thought about that? While James is working out his thing. Claire, what do you think? If somebody, you know, joins, you know, becomes a good person later in life and does all the things they should they not get the same reward that another person gets who lived a good life their whole life?
It's not the other person's fault that they didn't know. So.
Right. And I think that's kind of what this might be a little bit about. The other idea of it is, and I thought this was intriguing, was, you know, we are humans and we have our jealousies, and we, you know, one of the commandments is about not coveting. Thou shalt not covet. And when we see somebody get something that's more than we think they should have, that kind of makes you jealous. I know I feel that way sometimes, especially about cars. I like cars. And when I see somebody with a really nice car, I wish I had a really nice car. You don't think so, Claire?
No.
No? Well, that's my thing. I really like
Yeah, for 6 years.
when I see a Ferrari or something like that, I go, wow, that's really cool. But God works differently, I think, is what we have to understand, and that God's generosity is beyond our understanding of fairness. Just like in the parable, the vineyard owner says, you know, why are you upset if I'm being generous to somebody else? It doesn't affect you. And that there's some truth to that. And so I think that the way God decides to do things and intervene in our lives, and it really is beyond our understanding. So many things about God is just beyond our understanding. And one of them is how generous and forgiving and loving God can be. But I think the most important thing to take away from this is that if you do the work, you will be rewarded. That's what happened to the vineyard workers. Now, the question here is, what is the work that you need to do to get God's reward? James, does your audio work now? Can we hear you? Can you speak? No, I don't know. Something happened. It's probably maybe your plug. Try unplugging your headphones. See what happens. No, I don't know what happened. Hey, Lucy, are you there?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Lucy, what do you think that you have to do to get your to be like the vineyard worker and to get your reward from God?
You just have to work.
Right. But what's the work that we have to do to get God's reward? Do you think it means just get a job?
No, we have to be kind to one another.
That's a good one. That's one of the most important ones. Lanier, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think we have to do to get God's reward?
Work hard and like go to church and make sure to pray and make sure to go to church and work hard.
Yeah, I think those are all good things. Maren, what do you think?
I think you have to be fair to everybody.
Right. That's sort of like treat others the way you want to be treated. Right. You know, one of the things, I know it's been a long time since we've all been to worship service together. But remember, one of the things that is always said at when we go to church is the two greatest commandments: love God with all your heart and all your mind, all your soul, and the other one is like unto it: love each other right? And that means you have to treat each other with love. And those are the two great commandments. Love God and love each other. And I think that as a person of faith, that is, who does all those things, believes in God, worships God, gives thanks, prays, and then lives with an example of being a Christian, then you have done the work that God has set out for you to do. And it is, and then you will get your reward. And your reward, I think, is probably going to be the same as the reward that somebody who just figures it out much later in life. But the important thing is, God's always there waiting for us to come to him, even if we don't want to. And if you do, you get the reward that God has promised, and that is to be one and closer to God. That's the reward. This is a really difficult parable, I think, because it runs so different to what we do, to how we think sometimes. And that's what makes it so good, such a good parable, because it makes you stop and think. So that is, I think, basically the whole lesson for today. We have on the website, I think that there should be an email that gets sent out with the family resources, which should include the newspaper, the Community Times newspaper. And in that, there's like other articles and stuff like that talking about the parable that we studied today. And there's also an activity in there that looks kind of interesting. So if you're waiting around for the game to start, or you're kind of bored and there's nothing else to do, you can go find those. And I can, if you can't find that, then you can email me. I emailed all your folks earlier this week. You can email me at attorneydivine@gmail.com, and I can email those things out to you. So we are going to meet again in 2 weeks. We're the first and third Sundays of every month. And I think next time we get together, we'll do another parable, and we'll see you all then. All right. Oh, I hear a dog. All right, guys, thanks for coming. Great seeing you all, and have a great couple weeks, and we'll see you back then.
Bye, guys.